Thank you. But just save the applause for our two iconic poets who will join us in a second. Here, good evening. Whew. Welcome to our first event of the 2024-25 Pittsburgh Arts and Lecture season. We could not think of a better way to open our season, right? Celebrating local writers, the best writers this country can offer, is really the mission of our organization. So I'm delighted to welcome you all in the Carnegie Library Lecture Hall for our Poets Aloud event with two amazing writers. Our own Pittsburgh legendary poet, Jen Beatty, and let's hear it for Jen. Thank you. And the fifth presidential inaugural poet, Richard Blanco. My name is Sonny Toneme, and it is my privilege to serve as Executive Director of your Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures. On behalf of the board and our staff, again, welcome. Poets Aloud is presented in partnership with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, whose beautiful home we are this evening. We also thank the Regional Asset District, RAD, and the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts for their continued support. Tonight's event is presented in collaboration with the University of Pittsburgh Press, which published the beautiful collection of poetry we are about to launch this evening, Dragstripping by Jen Beatty. The format of tonight's event is the following. Richard Blanco will read, followed by Jen Beatty. Then they will hold a conversation interspersed with Q&A. So I will be with my colleague Lisa Dunn walking around with a microphone, and as they're having the conversation, they will call on you, and if you have a question, we will pass the microphone to you, and we ask that you keep the questions short and concise so everyone can have a chance to ask. Yeah. Our friends at Whitewell Bookstore are here with signed copies of Jen and Richard's books for sale. If you have not gotten your copy, I encourage you to do so after the event, because not only you're going to support these amazing poets, but you're going to support an independent bookstore, local bookstore here. It is so important that we really support local bookstores, especially independent bookstores. Tomorrow they have an amazing event with Sheriff Lakes for a collection of essays. You all should go. Yeah, thank you. Let's hear it for local writers. So please do buy a copy, and at the end of the event, Richard and Jen will personalize your copy for you. The way we are going to go about it, the line will start here and wind down the hallway. And if you're buying your copy, we will start a line right here in front of this table. And once you get your book, we ask that you join the end of the line, right? So this way we can have a really nice flow going on. Yeah. Sorry. I want to also encourage you to join us on September 16 when we welcome Colin Toybin for his book Long Island for this opening of our 10 evenings. If you have not gotten your tickets, I don't think we have subscription left because one of our events is sold out. But if you haven't gotten your ticket, there are single tickets available on our website. We really encourage you to join us. So this concludes our announcements for this evening. Now to our wonderful poets. Selected by President Obama as the fifth presidential inaugural poet in U.S. history, Richard Blanco was the youngest, the first Latinx, immigrant, and gay person to serve in that role. In 2023, Blanco was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Biden from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Born in Madrid to Cuban exile parents and raised in Miami, and a working class family, Blanco's personal negotiation of cultural identity and the universal themes of place and belonging characterize and many collections of poetry, including his most recent, Homeland of My Body. We have plenty of copies here, which reassess traditional notions of home as strictly a geographical, tangible place that merely exists outside of us, but rather within us. He has also authored the memoirs For All of Us, One Day, and The Prince of Los Cocuyos. I love this title. The Prince of Los Cocuyos, A Miami Childhood. Blanco has received numerous awards, including the Agnes Starrett Poetry Prize, the Pan American Beyond Margins Award, the Patterson Prize, and the Lambda Prize for Memoir. He was Woodward Wilson Fellow and has received numerous honorary degrees. Currently, he serves as Education Ambassador for the Academy of American Poets and is an associate professor at Florida International University. In April 2022, Blanco was appointed the first ever poet laureate of Miami-Dade County. And our star of this evening, Jen Beatty, is the author of 6 collections of poetry. Most recently, again, Dragstripping, The Body Wars, and Jackknife, New and Selected Poems, which won the Patterson Poetry Prize. Her memoir, American Bastard, won the Red Hen Nonfiction Prize. Beatty worked as a waitress in abortion clinics and in maximum security prisons. She is Professor Emerita at Carlow University, where she directed the MFA in Creative Writing programs and the Mad Woman and the Attic Writing workshops. Please help me give a warm Pittsburgh welcome to Jen Beatty and Richard Blanco.
Welcome everyone, and again, it's a wonderful pleasure to be with all of you here tonight, obviously, and also with my dear friend Dan, and I gotta say, my lovely Pittsburgh, which is kind of a home away from home for me for so many years. So I'm just gonna share, as was said, home and place of belonging are at the center of most of my work. So I'm just gonna read a few poems that sort of touch on some of those dimensions. And what they've meant, or how they've changed, or how they've grown, or how they've evolved throughout the years, including up to and including my most recent book. Growing up as a child of, as an exile, immigrant, a child of exiles as well. The idea of home was always complicated from the very beginning. As I like to say, it was made in Cuba, assembled in Spain, and imported to the United States. And part of that was my mother left 7 months Cuba. I was born in Madrid, and 45 days old, I landed in the United States. So by the time I was that age, I belonged to 3 countries, and yet in some ways to none. So this is kind of a whimsical look at the poet speaker, me sort of negotiating that sense of identity both on the Cuban side and sort of on the American side, and those kinds of stereotypes that exist on both. It's called The Name I Wanted. Not Ricardo, but Richard, because I felt like Richard Burton, a true Anglo-Saxon in tights reciting lines from Othello. Because I wanted to be as handsome as Richard Gere in a white tuxedo, because I had a pinky ring just like Richard Dawson on Family Feud. Because I knew I could be just as wholesome as Richie Cunningham, just as American as my father's favorite president, Nixon. Richard, not Ricardo, not my nicknames either. El Negrito for my skin, the color of dry tobacco when I was born, or El Galleguito, the little Galician, because that's what Tia Noelia called anyone like me, born in Spain, not 100% Cuban. And not Rico, the name Lupe wrote on my desk, branding me as Barry Manilow's Latin lover in ruffled sleeves dancing conga at the Copacabana, all of 8th grade. And definitely not Ricardito, little Ricky, worse than Dick. Richard, descendant of British royals, not the shepherds on my mother's family, not the plantain farmers on my father's side. Richard, name of German composers, not the swish of machetes and rapping of bongos. Richard, more elegant than my grandfather in his polyester suit, chiclets jingling in his pocket. Richard, more refined than my grandmother gnawing mangoes and passing gas at the kitchen sink. Ricardo de Jesus Blanco, I dub thee, myself, Sir Richard Jesus White, defender of my own country, protector of my wishes, conqueror of mirrors, sovereign of my imagination, a name for my name. And I was named after Richard Nixon, not for political reasons, just because I was in Spain and my father, he was president-elect. It was very sad when I realized I couldn't be president by 45 days, but anyway. Fast forwarding, went to Cuba and sort of investigated that part of my identity, eventually moved from the Republic of Miami to Connecticut and explored that Americanness that I thought, and neither was quite satisfying or completely whole, so I started traveling a lot, and some of the poems in the second book, I believe, or second and third book, sort of deal with that idea of travel as a way of sort of searching for paradise, and I think that's sort of a kind of an agenda that we have whenever we travel. We're still trying to find that home that's going to make us feel whole. And so this is one of those poems, Somewhere to Paris. And there's an epigraph by Pascal that says, the sole cause of a man's unhappiness is that he does not know how to stay quietly in his room. Somewhere to Paris. The villas of Italy turn to memory with each turn and clack of the train's wheels, with every stitch of track we leave behind. The Duomos return again to my imagination, already imagining Paris, a fantasy of lights and marble that may end when the train stops at Gare de l'Est and I step into the daylight. In the space between cities, between the dreamed and the dreaming, there is no map, no legend, no ancient street names or arrows to follow, no red dot assuring me you are here and no place else. If I don't know where I am, then I am only these heartbeats, my breaths, the mountains rising and falling like a wave scrolling across the train's window. I am alone with the moon on its path, staring like a blank page, sheer and white as the snow on the peaks echoing back its light. I am this solitude, never more beautiful, the arc of space I travel through for a few hours, touching nothing, keeping nothing, with nothing to deny the night, and the dark pines pointing to the stars. Oh, this life, always moving, yet always still. So it's that quote that epigraph that I opened that poem with. I soon realized that traveling, and as that poem sort of explains too, that you're never going to find that place, right? Every place is great for a few days until you learn the language or until you realize everybody's just going to work or whatnot. But so I moved back to Miami thinking this was the only home that I would really understand me, this place between worlds. And that quite didn't work out either, in the sense of the adage goes, you can't go back home. Though you can, but not in the ways that we think we can. And so this poem speaks to that. Little bit of backstory. Again, I'd moved away from Miami for about 8 years, been traveling a lot, came back to Miami, and started taking those proverbial trips down memory lane. One of those was the Golf Motel in Marco Island, which is a place out of my childhood and even into my 20s, a place that lived larger than life in my memory. And I went there thinking, of course, it's still there, and nothing's changed, because in our minds, in our memories, nothing changed. And of course, that's not what happened. And this is the emotional response to that. And I think we all have a place like that in our lives, right? So whether it's a motel or an aunt's house or a house you used to live in or a kitchen table somewhere in some relative's house. So I invite you to think about what that place is for you as I share mine with you. Looking for the Golf Motel, Marco Island, Florida. There should be nothing here I don't remember. The Golf Motel with mermaid lampposts and ship's wheel in the lobby should still be rising out of the sand like a cake decoration. My brother and I should still be pretending we don't know our parents, embarrassing us as they roll the luggage cart past the front desk, loaded with our scruffy suitcases, 24 loaves of Cuban bread, brown bags bulging with enough mangoes to last the entire week, our espresso pot, the pressure cooker, and a pork roast reeking garlic through the lobby. All because we can't afford to eat out, mijo. Not even on vacation. Only 2 hours from our home in Miami, but far enough away to be thrilled by the whiter sands on the west coast of Florida, where I should still be, for the first time, watching the sun set instead of rise over the ocean. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My mother should still be in the kitchenette of the hotel, her daisy sandals from Kmart still squeaking across the linoleum, still gorgeous in her teal earrings, teal swimsuit and amber earrings, stirring a pot of arroz con pollo, adding sprinkles of onion powder and dollops of tomato sauce. My father should still be in a terry cloth jacket, smoking, clinking a glass of amber whiskey in the sunset at the Golf Motel, watching us dive into the pool. 2 boys he'll never see grow into men who will be proud of him. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My brother and I should still be playing parcheesi. My father should still be alive, slow dancing with my mother on the sliding glass balcony of the Golf Motel. No waves, only a song they hear in their minds, 10,000 nights back to their life in Cuba. My mother's face should still be resting against his bare chest, like the moon resting on the sea. And the stars should still be turning around them. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My brother should still be 13, sneaking rum in the bathroom and sculpting naked women from sand. And I should still be 8 years old, dazzled by seashells and how many seconds I can hold my breath underwater. But I'm not. I'm 38, driving up Collier Boulevard, looking for the Golf Motel, for everything that should still be, but isn't. I want to blame the condos, their shadows for ruining the beach in my past. I want to chase the snowbirds away with their tacky mansions and yachts. I want to turn the golf courses back into mangroves. I want to find the Golf Motel exactly as it was and pretend for just a moment nothing lost is lost. Thank you. just going to read a couple more poems, and then we'll turn it over to dragstripping. Love that term. So part of the iteration of home is after being asked to serve as presidential inaugural poet, or PIP, as I like to call myself. The idea of home became even bigger, right? So it wasn't just like my own context as a Cuban American or even as a gay man, but what is country to all of us? What does that mean, right? And so I started writing poems that dared a little bit more to talk about some also social political issues that are grounded in the idea of home and migration beyond my own autobiographical experience, but autobiographical emotion, if that makes sense. And one of those is this poem called "Complaint of El Rio Grande," which is I'm thinking about obviously the U.S.-Mexico border, but I'm thinking beyond that. I'm thinking also the absurdity of borders, right? The absurdity, especially in the 21st century, as if, we're still these neat little countries divided and, you step in one place when we're all connected in so many different ways. But the absurdity of borders also in the ways that we know historically are meant to just basically control power and wealth, right? So I thought, that's a big assignment there, Richard. So I thought, what's the best way to solve this? And this is what we poets, all artists try to do. And I thought the best way to do this is to speak in the voice of the river, and give it not just to the present context of what we're dealing with in this country, but also really globally, but also historically. Give it to all humanity, so to speak, and whip them into shape, so to speak. So again, in the voice of the river. Complaint of El Rio Grande. I was meant for all things to meet, to make the clouds pause in the mirror of my waters, to be home to fallen rain that finds its way to me, to turn eons of loveless rock into love-sick pebbles and carry them as humble gifts back to the sea, which brings life back to me. I felt the sun flare, praised each star, flocked about the moon long before you did. I breathed air you'll never breathe. Listened to songbirds before you could speak their names, before you dug your oars in me, before you created the gods that created you. Then countries, your invention. Maps jigsawing the world into colored shapes, caged in bold lines to say you're here, not there. You're this, not that. To say yellow isn't red, red isn't black, black is not white. To say mine, not ours. To say war and believe life's worth is relative. You named me. Big river drew me, blue, thick to divide. You split me in two, half of me, us, the rest them, but I wasn't meant to drown children. Hear mother's cries, never meant to be your geography, a line, a border, a murderer. I was meant for all things to meet. The mirrored clouds and sun's tingle, bird songs in the quiet moon, the wind and its dust, the rush of mountain rain, and us. Blood that runs in you is water flowing in me. Both life, both the truth we know. We know. So part of, part of Homeland of My Body, it's a new and selected, so selections obviously from my previous collections, and this is one of the new poems that I'll close with. And part of what that title implies to me is that search for home has become very interior. In some ways, I have all the homes in me, right, in all my experiences, even physiologically in some ways. I've never lost a home in some ways. They all carry with me. But also, I returned to live part-time 3 blocks away from the apartment where I first wrote my first book. So things start happening, right? You start thinking about regurgitating these ideas of landscapes and whatnot, and then turning middle age and thinking about that also sort of affected the book. But the ideas being the body is my ultimate home, my ultimate place where I belong and where everything comes together. This poem in particular was inspired by something I heard on NPR. I know a lot of stories begin that way, but, and they talk about when Moses is called by the burning bush, he says, here I am instead of I am here, and there's this whole discussion about the semantics of that, but also the religiosity of that, if that's a word, but what that means. But for me, I just took it more of the semantics as a geek poet, right? Like thinking, oh my God, there is a big difference there. And so, again, living, you know, in these same landscapes that were part of my very essence. So in a way, I put those two things together, and the beach is sort of my divine. It's my burning bush, so to speak. And this is my returning to that landscape. And the Hebrew word for here I am is hineni. God of these waters' gracious hands anointing my feet, hineni, here I am. Again, trudging along the shore with the sins of my greed for love, sins of my gluttony for homeland, sins of my wrath against myself. Hineni, here I am, again, asking the ebb to wash my guilt back into the depths of forgiveness. God of these salt-laden breaths, these breezes, hineni, here I am, again, breathing their balm into my body of hurt, that I might heal and exhale words to ease this world's aching. God of these devout seagulls peering into our everyday eternity, inscribed anew across the pale blue of the sky's vellum, hineni, here I am. Again, reading the clouds' ellipses, following their drift into glimpses of a divinity I must divine for myself. God of the infinite possibilities of sand I was sculpted from, hineni, here I am, again, infinitely a boy, with bucket and shovel, still wanting to sculpt something almighty out of the sparkly grains of myself, something sacred that can't be washed away. God of the sunset's tangerine eye, burning holy between eyelids of sky and sea, hineni, here I am, called by your gaze to ask once again, what would you have me do with the rest of this undone life of mine, here as I am, hineni. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Richard. That was so great. Can you guys hear me in the back or up there? I'm so happy to read with you, and thank you for coming from Miami, and grateful to be your friend, as you know. Big thanks to Sony and Arts and Lectures, and thanks all of you for coming on a Thursday night. And I have a couple thanks, if you'll bear with me here, because this is kind of a big deal. It's a big deal for me, and with a new book here. And I want to thank University of Pittsburgh Press, editors Terrence Hayes, Nancy Krogowski, Jeffrey McDaniel, especially Alex Wolf, who he designed the cover of Dragstripping, and the wonderful Leslie Rains. I want to give a shout out to Carlos Hernandez, who actually created the artwork. There's a print over there, which Carlos sent from Houston. He's a really cool artist who lives in Houston, if you want to check him out and buy some of his work. I went to Houston to meet him because I wanted to see who he was. I mean, I wanted to make sure I liked him. And, you know, I mean, I wanted to have a cool person on the cover, make the cover. And thanks to White Whale for supplying the books tonight and the great community work they do. And I want to thank everyone who helped me to get here tonight. The list is too long, but I'll just name a few people here. The dazzling poet Judith Fulmer, all the mad women who have made me madder. What? And vice versa, spoken like a mad woman. And Story Knife in Alaska, where I finished these poems, Todd Sanders for Massive Help, and Rashid Cat Lover, who for Secret Haircuts, Amy Lee Heinlein and Marguerite Sargent of Lefty Blondie Press, Iris Jamal Dunkel for Recovering the Words of Women, the fabulous Tamara De Palma, the always wild Denise Duhamel, Jean Hadfield Hollowood for Psychic Support, the staggering bravery of Ann Tomer, Lisa Alexander for Throttled Body, Joan E. Bauer, Poet of History, for Connecting Us, Nancy Kirkwood for Subversion and Undercover Fashion, Michael Jones for Incredible Courage, great teacher and writer Leanne Ellison Norman, the Cosmic Sandra Cisneros, Diane Glancy, Poet of the Other Worlds, most of all, the best Don Hollywood, wherever you went. Thank you. So, I have dedicated my book to Ed Ochester, who many of you might know, who died on August 22nd of last year. He was my teacher, my editor, my friend, my guide, and my life would not be the same without him. He was a brilliant poet, and as an editor, he changed the face of American poetry by publishing women, queer writers, writers of color, before diversity was even a conversation in publishing. Most of all, he was a great human. He and his wife, the incomparable Britt Horner, planted gardens, ran Spring Church Book Company for many years, shipping books around the country, along with conversation. They left the world better than they found it. And I'm going to begin with a poem by Ed from Unreconstructed, by Autumn House Press. Please buy Ed's books. And this is dedicated to Betsy Ochester. The heart of Owl Country. Whatever blossoms is rooted in the dark, as item, the delicate purple comfrey flower supported by a brutish taproot that powers itself into the subsoil and splits the shale a dozen feet beneath me, so that the bumblebees tumble in a drunken frenzy here. And item, if I tend my loneliness, which is no rarer than yours, friend, I grow stronger, so that my fists open and the garden becomes a natural metaphor for what we have always known, that only by going deeply as possible into our dark can we discover ourselves. And even though the stutterer I have always been would like to say, we will never die, I know that we will utterly, except for what we yield to friends or progeny. That's the garden part. And I remember now what I'd forgotten for years, how once when we were driving to my mother's in New York State, at twilight passing through a large marsh, my daughter said, "Look." And in every dead tree there was an owl, hundreds of them, stupid, in the light like a faculty senate, staring uncomprehendingly at the swamp and the cars on the interstate. So still one could have knocked them off their perches with a stick, and my daughter screamed, delighted. This must be the heart of owl country. And it was. Those soft fists of feathers waiting for their hour, long after we'd passed, lifting into the spring air on their solitary flights, each silent in its large community, alert and perfect. So thanks to Ed Ochester. We owe him a big debt. So here's Dragstripping, my new book. I just got it. It just came out September 3rd, so cutting it close. This book begins with a singular voice that speaks of violence against women and speaks for the women who can no longer speak. As you know, there has always been a war against women, but now it's much worse. You might know that I was born in an orphanage in the Hill District of Pittsburgh and spent the first year of my life there. This book begins with a voice. There's a woman and a coat hanger in the same situation a lot of women find themselves right now. My birth mother tried to give herself an abortion, but stopped after so much blood. So this is the voice. I was born in a steel mill. I was born in the violations of others. I was born blue. I was born blue, half aborted by my mother's hands and a coat hanger. But who cares? It's one small, almost death in the many deaths. The women killed and never found. The women killed in their own homes, then disposed of. The women killed by boyfriends, husbands, partners, strangers, buried in the dirt of this country, the unknown bodies of women. This is called Drag, with a line from Neil Young. They say I have attachment disorder from years in the orphanage. I say I'm attached to dirt, to the grit of stones, pulverized metal from the slag heap. I learned touch from air. I fashioned love from strangers. Your families make no sense to me. My mother's the four-barrel of a 409. My heart's drag-stripped from the shredded tires of predators. Go ahead, think of me. Throw the red flag down. I'm one you'd never figured. Dead engine start on a quarter-mile strip. My low jack is the split. The pull away. You back there. Me running the distance. So this poem is called Sanctified. It's for Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I don't know if you guys know Sister Rosetta. Yeah, a couple people. Yeah. So she was what they called a blues shouter. Singers who belted with a fervor and an energy. And she started as a gospel singer and then kind of slid over into blues. And you can see her online. There's a YouTube of her, and especially this one 1964 tour with Muddy Waters. It was in Manchester, England on May 7th on this train platform, and it's really cool, but she's wearing this dress, and she's playing this guitar, and she's moving up and down this train platform. I would recommend watching it. And supposedly this particular concert in Manchester had an effect on some of the British rockers like Clapton, Keith Richards, Jeff Beck, and other blues shouters might be like Screamin' Jay Hawkins or Howlin' Wolf. Sanctified. for Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Dear Sister Rosetta, it's 50 years too late, but I love your high-heeled guitar playing. The way they said you railed your white Les Paul custom like a Tommy gun. Gospel wild and showing the men how it's done. Double cutaway fins, your dress breathing red flowers, hugging your full-size body, and I don't want to be redeemed. But I have become glorious in the halls of tricked-out love from the glint of your enormous necklace. Hearing your soul-heavy voice surge, flowers blur as your chest swells with song. I'm blown away by my own bullets of trouble. Sister, I'm saying what you always knew, that real is real, that in the nightclub wailing and the strap-on guitars, there's no happy ending. Just the blues shouters, scorching, sanctified. Okay, so I'm not a big audience participation person, but I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to answer me. So, have any of you ever been depressed? Okay. And if you have, will you raise your hand? All right, yeah. Richard, all right. Okay, I have to. Thank you. So this is for you. This is called Psych Intake with Flames. And it's also for the rest of you who didn't raise your hand, who are lying. Psych Intake with Flames. The tests say I have a high IQ, but I have trouble walking around. There are pins in the air and so much pressure. The nurse says, have there been any changes? I've been getting stoned. Okay, even if you don't understand. Sometimes, let the world of flames speak for itself. Let the radiant life shine. Okay, now that I know who I'm talking to, so this is a poem from my father, my adopted father, who I was very close to. He was a steel worker. He was a really great guy. Thank God he was there, and he died in 1986. So that was a while ago, right? And I know that all of you have lost somebody, and how hard that is. And I hope that you feel like they're still around, you know that feeling you have, like after people die, you think they're still here, and that can be good. This is my father's ring, this onyx ring that I wear. He used to wear it all the time, and used to have a diamond in it. I took it out and put a garnet in it, because my astrologer told me that onyx and diamonds together will cool down love. And I didn't want to take any chances. This is called Blood Ring. I cut a tunnel through my father's onyx ring, cut the diamond out, and stone fired a garnet in the center. My astrologer said that onyx and diamonds together cool down love. When I asked so my father's DNA could bleed into my skin, he became stone, looked at me like I was a baby eater or a pod person. On my middle finger for a direct line to the heart, and years later, I wandered into dynamic energy crystals in Sausalito, past the singing bowls and the rose quartz globes. The in-house psychic walked straight over and said, "What is that ring?" I told her it was my father's, and she said, "The energy goes through the center stone and down into your body. It's a channel." I looked down at the blood-red opening. "It's a very powerful ring," she said. I was very close to him. Feeling the red spreading, feeling the blood move, she felt it from across the room. I looked into her blue crystalline eyes. I could see the waves of air and other oceans. "We're garnered on Saturday," she said, "within 1 hour from sunrise during the period of Saturn." "Okay," I said, rubbing the stone, her standing so close I was feeling the ghosts move through. This blood ring, my father, all around me. I have a couple more. This is a love poem, and I know you're thinking, finally, like a love poem. And this is for Dawn, and it might not seem like a love poem, because, I mean, it has a sawed-off shotgun in it, but if you wait, you'll see the love. Okay. When I was holy. The first time I was holy, my birth mother gave me a cheap plastic bottle of water from Lourdes with a red cap. Holy, not because of the water, not because she said, "Oh, I'll get that for my little bastard baby," but the handing over, that perfect cinematic moment that birthed the expanding, the breathing water in me. I'm across the street from the sea, years later at the Miami Ocean Walk and the green Art Deco they used in Scarface, right where Tony Montana shot the Colombian on the steps, him clutching his orange bebop shirt and his ratty drug dealer shoes, and the dramatic stumble down the steps after the classic scene with Marta and the sawed-off shotgun on the bed, "Quieto, no te muevos, cabroncito," before the chainsaw and the bloody bullseye, holy in its choreography, but really it's justice. What is it you hand over? The holy baby, the yayo, the fake miracle water. When Montana assumes a shooting stance, unloads 2 into the Colombian in the middle of Ocean Drive, jumps up in the car with sexy Stephen Bauer, yelling, "Go, go." Is that holy? On the Ocean Walk, a Cuban band plays Bon Jovi, "It's My Life." Golf carts of tourists rolling by, and the best strip shot of breeze I've ever felt. I can't get to the start of it, the getting born of it, but the middle seems much sweeter, like cardamom, like rhubarb pastry, which I don't like, but the berry color feels free. You tell me what holy is. I say the waiter with a smooth low, "Hey beautiful, don't lift the tray, I don't want you to work." Holy, holy. want me to use, like bulk, there's nothing like the smack of a fuckhead. Like Jack White, who says technology is a big destroyer of emotion and truth. I dream of sledgehammering computers, jumping on them, then throwing the detritus out the window. Feeling my own gunfire, because who wants a watered-down heart? People call me dark, but a world without dark is just half a world. I know you understand. There's a bridge between us. Can you see it? Didn't you ever want to tear something down? Smash it to make the parts talk their battered talk? The stabbing edges and burning colors, the love compressed in the steel beam and raging yellow flame. Dead 1,000 years, and I've never tired of the dying waving me away. That last hand lifted between you and me. That raised drawbridge of power. That sweet breeze of, that's enough. To learn more and live some more, but thanks for listening. This is called Dragstripping. I met a stripper on my first visit to the big West. I loved plain brown hair falling over the side of her face. I was still wearing women's clothes and shoes, but I made myself a believer that day. Her thick belt, heavy boots, brown eyes, the way she looked at me until I had to look away. She was boy, and I hadn't met anyone like her yet. Look at her blue shirt. She opened me, the way she tore at the grass, hard, then through it. We walked the hills in Marin. I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be her. I couldn't even say what she had, but I wanted it. Our time lasted only weeks, but her face still comes to me. I made myself a queen those days. Inside I felt the turning diamonds of a life not lived, someone else's life, now mine. Holding the vision heavy as mud, I thought, just a push into my own bleeding heart. I could feel the brass screws of the rail's underside, a train running without me. I could feel the spikes and the crosscuts, and I came alive in the fading light and the sky full of birds. And I did, and it was fierce and wild, and back to the wall scary. It was off on whenever she was there. I was a blank slate with a hard body. It was everything I wanted. Someone to kiss me, nice and slow, then slam me onto the ground's body. It would be years until I knew her, knew that part of me. As I searched secondhand stores for men's clothing, men's size 7 shoes, looking for the boy man in me. I don't believe in salvation, but look at her body. Stripping, jerking to one side, head bent, hair covers her face, breasts large and moving, her thickness, wet with boy sweat between her legs, a strip shot across a pitch black stage, flash of a woman running her show. However she wants you, she can have you, half of a whole body stripping for you, the body divided against itself in beauty. I made myself a man watching her. The strip shot breaks apart into millions of shot back stars, cutting the night apart in her cross-cut body, hard and lovely. Some people say half isn't anything, but it will drive an ocean back to the center. She'll take your money and you'll thank her in the cage of your body, drowning in the stripping, loving the shot back body. Dear ghost of everything, you wanted, jerking you into pleasure, jerking you into your own story with a strip shot of ammo to the vulva, triangle of light, triangle of her, the rapper, three sides of lust, the fuck field, the fourth eye. I saw the future in her body, but I didn't know my questions. All that came out of my mouth were birds. Thank you very much.
These are on.
I guess.
Hello. Hello. So I think we're supposed to have some kind of conversation, but I'm not sure how we're doing on time because we want to make sure we get some questions. But
Yeah.
I want to say, Jim, just something that occurred to me, and I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff, right? But I don't think we've ever really commented on this, and I'm curious, but I wanted to share with you. As far as readers and who you read, sometimes, like, I think for Latino, a Latinx to Latino author, that people often feel that the only people I read are those that write exactly my experiences or write in my same style. But one of the reasons I admire you and your work is because you make me dare do things with language. And so I like reading people that I know I could never write like. Does that make sense? I know, just wonder if there's some authors for you like that where you're like, okay, this is inspiring because in a way it's something I can't do, but it's teaching me something that, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know this. I always read Diane Glancy,
Yeah.
like all the time. I don't know what it is. Well, I think part of it is she always writes about living in the middle of things. She has a Native American father and a white mother, and she was shipped off to Indian boarding school, and so she has huge identity questions and talks about locating herself nowhere, and I think that resonated with me in adoption, but she's so amazingly talented. It seems like she drives across the country, like across the country, and sleeps along the way, and she writes, and she sees ghosts everywhere, and I believe she does. She sees ghosts, and she writes all these poems, and they're otherworldly, and I can't do it, but I would like to do it. So
And also in other genres too, as well.
yeah, she writes fiction, poetry, nonfiction. She writes everything. She's just something. So she's,
You're making me think, I mean, this is more of a much older, obviously, not a contemporary poet, but Elizabeth Bishop, for me, has that same sense of exile, which you wouldn't think, and it's partly because she was orphaned, effectively orphaned when she was 4 years old, and you see in between the cracks all this other energy and emotion that comes through in the poems. But on the surface, it wouldn't be someone that I would even expect to see myself in, and I think sometimes that's very surprising, and I try to share that with my students. It's great to read what's in your wheelhouse, but it's also great to read outside of your comfort or what you expect to like or to see yourself in. But questions? Yeah, I think I think there's someone coming around with a microphone.
yeah. If anyone has a question in the audience.
Right behind you. Can you?
My question is, can you be an orphan when you have your parents?
That's I'm not sure which that applies to for both of us. In some ways, that's a question. I mean, well, I'll say one small thing, but I think Jan's more to answer. This is more a question that maybe Jan has written about, perhaps in some way, shape, or form. But I know as a gay man, we always say, right, I think that doesn't always apply just to gay men, but you do have a process of finding your own family, right? There's a process of rebirth, which sometimes feels not quite being an orphan, but it does feel like you have to make this other family that is not always your birth family often. So that's the first thing that came to my mind. But
Yeah, and I don't think anyone can define that for anyone else, you know. I mean, you could certainly feel that and define that for yourself, but I don't think, you know, anyone can define that for you, you know. And, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted your opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Jan. I'm your old office mate, Carl Kurlander. And,
Carl, how you doing?
we have a great cute meat story because I know you always had the poem about the Pope's penis made all the students think I was cool. So I'm just curious about your own cute meat story between the two of you. I came in 5 minutes late. I hope I didn't miss it. But could you talk about a little bit about your own meeting each other and how you kind of fed off each other as poets?
Well, part of it is, I mean, Jan's work, like I said, is just sort of, like I was just saying earlier, it's just the kind of stuff that inspires me in ways that aren't just, you know, expected. That's one thing. But we met at Dodge, wasn't it?
No, oh, I thought we met at AWP.
Or at AWP?
I knew Richard's work before I knew Richard from
Yeah.
your Starrett book. Is it City of a Thousand Fires?
Yeah, City Under Fire, yeah.
It's a great book, and you should all have it if you don't have it. But and so I knew you before I knew you, and then when I met Richard, I mean Richard's so handsome, as you can tell, and I was like, I'm like, this is the guy that wrote City of a Thousand Fires, and we just I think we were doing a book signing at AWP, and that's, I think, after you had become the inaugural poet, and you had a line of like 1,000 people, and I had about 3 people waiting for me, and I'm like, and I was just messing with you. I said, Richard, why do you think these people are here for you? And he's like, what's the big deal, you know? And I don't know, we just became fast friends, and
Right. And then there's that funny sort of weird misunderstanding, but remember, we were just talking about this recently, and how we remembered it differently. When you had mentioned Dawn,
oh yeah.
and I was like, sorry to be stereotyped, you know, Jan, short cropped hair, and I thought, what is it I said? I said, is Dawn, like
You said, is it D-A-W-N or is it D-O-N?
But I remembered it differently, that Jan had asked me, like, do you think I'm gay? Like, I mean, do I appear that way? We had
We
had
had
it all wrong. I mean, I had it all wrong, which is typical. But to be honest, that's the level of just honesty and openness that we had from the very beginning, and obviously, you know, you can tell just that anybody who has talked to Jan for more than 2 seconds knows that, you know, it's an open book, right, transparent, and that's something that I look for not only in other writers but also just in people. But I think she continues to inspire me. As they say, sometimes don't meet your heroes, kind of thing. Like, this is the opposite, which is someplace where good writers can be also amazing people as well. So that keeps us fueled. And also not talking about writing, we just talk about all sorts
Anything,
of
yeah.
anything.
But I was worried becoming an inaugural poet is amazing, and you know, all these amazing awards you've gotten, and but I was worried that you wouldn't be able to write fuck poems after that.
Oh.
And didn't you write a fuck poem to me or something?
Yes. So I still haven't sent it to you, have I? I'm still scared to send it to Jan. Because the queen of the fuck poems, I'm like, this sucks. But it's something, actually, you should tell my husband, right? And again, I got it wrong. Like, I thought you spoke, but I think you told Mark. I wonder, because I actually, in person, I cuss like a sailor. I'm terrible. And Jan never says it. Well, every once in a while, but I am like all the time. But I've never used fuck in a poem. And I think you mentioned, why doesn't Richard sing fuck all the time? Why did it? So I wrote this poem called Fuck My Poems after Jan Beatty, or for Jan Beatty. And I was going to read it tonight, but I wasn't sure. It's interesting because it's interesting, but I don't even know. So it got, no, I'm not going to say that, but it didn't come in this book, it didn't make it in this book because it was such a different poem, but it's coming out soon in print, so yeah. So we're going to be together on the page.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you. Jan, I was wondering, I loved hearing about how Dragstripping, the title poem, took you such a long time to write, and I was wondering if you would be willing to talk a little bit about the evolution of that poem and sort of the revision process and when you knew it was time, when you were actually ready to bring it forward.
Sure. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it was something like 20 years with that poem, and I just, gave up on it. And I'm like, I don't know how to write about this, and I didn't want to write a bad poem. I didn't know what I was trying to say, but I knew it was something related to gender and, stripping and different things. But I didn't want to seem like I knew something I didn't know, and I just didn't. I don't know. I wanted it to be good, so and I couldn't get there. And strangely, what happened? I was at Story Knife in Alaska, which is a writer's residency for women in Homer, Alaska, which I would recommend applying to. But just a couple years ago, and I thought, I'm going to try this again. And what I did, and what I've been doing lately, is going to old poems, old poems, and grabbing stanzas and grabbing parts of old poems and just starting to do free writing with them, and then, jamming them into new poems. Not just, trying to combine some old and new poems and seeing what happens then with more free writing, and just using like an intuitive sense to say, well, what happens if I put this in here? What happens if I put this in here? And that a couple of the stanzas about the rails and in a couple of those stanzas, I think it's the second and third stanza in that poem came from a very old poem in which the speaker of the poem, not me, but the speaker of the poem was pushing her boyfriend down the stairs, and so a very different kind of poem. And I'm like, but I was confused. I'm like, how could a poem that was sort of a violent poem work in a poem about desire and elation or discovery, and that was kind of disturbing me too. And so it was just a lot of work and thought about it, and I thought, well, I'm sure that what do I know about desire? I'm sure I know something, but I'm sure there's a lot I don't know, and it's like I'm sure there's undercurrents of it that could touch on trouble, or certainly touch on trouble, or shades of violence, etc. And so I'm sure it's okay to have this merge in here and interact here. And so there was a lot of that kind of stuff happening. But it just, it was just merging an old poem with a new poem, and that's really how it came to be, and then a lot of revisions. So that's what happened. There was no great plan or no great, understanding that happened. I guess with all writing, you just try something new, you keep revising, you learn something more, you do some more reading, and you try again. That's about it.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As they say on the radio, don't go anywhere. They will sign some books for you. That will take a moment to set the table. And again, thank you for joining us for our first event of the season. We have a whole season for you. Please visit our website and get tickets. Most of them are free. Join us and support writers. Thank you again, Jen. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. We need to move the microphone. Yeah. And before